So whenever you're working with an image in Photoshop, you can always change the mode by going up to Image and Mode, and you can choose either RGB, CMYK, or Lab. All of these different modes give you the ability to change the elements that make up that particular um, mode. So in RGB, for example, you could manipulate just the reds, just the greens, just the blues. In CMYK, you could do cyan, magenta, yellow, black, lab, lightness, and then the A tones and the B tones. So just as an example here, I've got CMYK color selected, and if I open up my channels palette, if you're missing any palettes, just go to Window, and you can check them off by clicking on them. Here's channels. You can see I've got cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Those are all represented there. If I want to manipulate specific colors in these, then there's a couple ways to do it. And the one way I prefer to do it, because this is a non-destructive method, is to create an adjustment layer. And we can use curves and levels to do this. So for example, if I use levels, I can choose to adjust the overall image by moving the slider around, and that basically affects everything here in my histogram. Or I can choose specifics. So if I want to choose cyan, for example, I can manipulate just the cyan tone with my slider to get the desired effect that I want. Now, of course, if I don't want this, because this is an adjustment layer, I can always delete it and it's gone, so it doesn't permanently ruin your photo. The other way to do this is with curves. And with curves, you have that drop-down menu again. So if I want to work with just the blacks, and I want to make them, a little bit more subtle, there we go. It's giving me a nice bit of contrast there that I'm looking for. And of course, you can manipulate these any which way you like. It's up to you. They're your photos. So, what we really want you to know is this: you can play around with the different elements that make up the mode. So you can adjust the blacks, the yellows, the magentas, cyan. If you're in RGB, you can adjust your reds and greens and blues and so on. And so this is a great way to make minor adjustments that will hopefully improve your image. And the other thing that we're hoping with this is that when you go and print, that you're actually getting the color that you want. And so that's where sometimes the lab mode comes in very handy. But yeah, it's a matter of playing around with these. And as I mentioned, creating an adjustment layer is a little more desirable, I think anyway, because it allows you to have something that if you're not entirely happy with it, you can delete it. And because this is also a mask, I'll just show you an extreme example here. If I was to take yellow here and just crank that right up and say I wasn't very happy with how it looked just right here, because it's a mask, I can always click on my mask, take my paintbrush, and the way masks work, if you're not familiar, always make sure your brush is the opposite color of your mask, and then you can paint out any of those undesirable elements that you might not want. And so you might want a yellow tone over certain things, but not others. There you go. And as you can see, it paints it out of the mask. That's not a great example, but it does show you how it works. So as I mentioned, adjustment layers, because they have masks and because you can do this, delete, then you can always get back to your original. It's non-destructive, and it gives you the opportunity to play around and create different versions if you like, or just to simply correct your images. So good luck with playing around with these. Hopefully that helps you make some adjustments to the color in your images.